So first I need to say it's really interesting. I led or taught a couple of workshops on the Enneagram here last month, I think, and I wasn't nervous at all. But here I'm showing up like sharing my life with people. So that feels a little more vulnerable. So I'm a little bit nervous. So forgive that if you would. All right. So the top, and I do better if I have visual support, so I can talk, but you can see pictures and that kind of stuff. So that's why I use PowerPoint. I did it for a living, so it just is the way I kind of approach life. So my topic is living in steps 10, 11, and 12. So I'll talk for about 30 minutes, hopefully a little bit shorter than that. I live in Las Vegas in the USA. I don't know how many of you have been to Las Vegas. I live 15 miles north of the strip, so I'm about 20 minutes away from a vacation at any time, which is good and bad. Every morning, I wake up to a sunrise in the desert, and those are my little dogs, Chaos and Mayhem. They are just a delight to me. My full name is Cheryl Wild Reisdorff, and Wild is truly my middle name. So Wild is my middle name. It actually was my maiden name. I have been married for 43 years. My husband's name is Nick. I call him Saint Nick because he's been married to me for 43 years. And when we were first married, we were private investigators. So I wanted to talk him into taking my name. So he would be Nick Wild, PI, but he said no. So I took his name instead. So that's probably enough history about me outside of program. So now what I want to do is just talk to you about a little bit about program. I've been in the OA program for 20 years, worked the steps probably 8, 9, something like that times. My career history is that I was a successful software trainer and then the training leader. So I've been in adult education my entire life. About a decade of that, I traveled the world and taught how to sell software. So it was very fun. SAP, Oracle, IBM, Hewlett Packard, those were my customers, clients. The reason I bring that up is my best skill is to take complex concepts and turn them into tactical, practical actions. That's what I do. It is, I consider it a gift from my higher power. So as I go through this, I'm telling you this right now, because if I start sounding teachery, it's because that's my affect and I lean into that. So I apologize in advance if it feels like I'm lecturing you. I don't mean to, because, the reason I'm nervous, by the way, is because I'm not perfect at 10, 11, and 12. I'm not sure why I think I'm supposed to be perfect, but there's I think always that. At the bottom, you'll see that I have a LinkedIn profile there if you want to look me up and see anything about my history. Go for it. This is a picture of me at my highest weight. Those of us that are in an eating program, usually there's a physical aspect to it. There probably is at others as well. So that is me at my highest weight. This is me now. But I want you to notice, now set the weight is aside, because it's just like the life. The woman on the right is living happy, joyous, and free. And there's a different affect. There's a different way that I approach life. And to me, that's even more compelling than weight loss. Okay. So I believe that living, and by the way, thank you, by the way, for inviting me back. But the reason that I was invited, I think, is because I talk about the fact that I live in 10, 11, and 12. I've talked about that for years. I didn't even know that Friendly Circle Berlin had this meeting on Fridays. I didn't even know it existed, but I talk about that at meetings because I want people to understand that living in those steps is the secret to being happy, joyous, and free. So you notice I put free in caps because the freedom is what allows us to be happy and joyous. Happy is momentary. Joyous is customary, maybe, if we're living well, but free is what allows the other things to happen. So, and I boil this down when I talk to people, they say, what do you mean living in 10, 11, and 12? I say, it is live clean, that's 10, seek God, that's 11, help others, that's 12. So live clean, seek God, help others. If I live like that, and that takes up my time and energy, I don't have time for all the other shit. I don't have time. I don't have time for any of the other things. So to me, that is like the answer to all of it. And that is how I live. I do want to say, I wish, now maybe I don't, but I'll say this. I wish that I could just decide to live in 10, 11, and 12, that I could come to program or not, and just decide that I'm going to live like that. But it doesn't work that way. The only way out is through. So I'm going to talk a bit about what did I have to go through in order to get here, and not even what I have to go through, but what all of us have to go through, at least in my opinion, we have to go through. I am a believer that the 12 steps are super duper important and that they bust our balls. That's what they do. That is the job of the 12 steps. I now am focused on the Enneagram. It's what I'm teaching at Surrender School, because I think that next step, that emotional sobriety piece that says, I'm not white knuckling it anymore. I'm truly sober, right? I'm emotionally sober, instead of just not practicing whatever my addiction is, right? So anyway, the idea here is the way that we live in 10, 11, and 12 is to go through the steps. I want to begin by talking about something this was such a compelling quote. It's from the book Living Presence, one of the books that I'm reading right now. And he says, human beings stand in the rubble of former beliefs. And I just think that is an astounding quote. I stand in the rubble of my form. It's not buildings anymore, right? But what's happened is I've broken that ego structure that was built up, and that I've talked about if you came to my other sessions. That ego structure that's built is now kind of crumbling, but I'm standing in the rubble of it. And what does that mean? So for me, there's two things. I believe that if I tried harder, I would be able to get over my addiction. And if I hated myself enough, I would be able to get over my addiction. And neither of those is true. Those are beliefs that absolutely are not true. Neither is true. I don't know if it's true for you. Certainly not true for me. So the try harder part has now been replaced in essence with acceptance. 417 of the big book, it's like, okay, trying harder is absolutely beside the point. This is, and the way I learned that, and it's relatively recently, is reading Alan Berger's book and doing a study with not with Alan Berger, although I'm so excited that he's here, because I'm going to watch those videos, because I just think he's an awesome author and I love what he has to say. When I summarize that, people are like, what is that about? I'm like, okay, well, this is what I think it's about. It is living life on life's terms, and the realization that reality is reality, and it doesn't give a shit about my opinion. Now, that doesn't sound freeing, but it is freeing. I'm a control freak, have been. I'm a recovered control freak, but it's like I thought everything was my responsibility. And when I can go, no, reality is reality, and it doesn't give a shit about what I think at all. It is reality. My job is to accept it. Its job is not to accept my view, right? And that, I don't know. I don't even know why it's freeing. There's so many things that I don't know why on any of it, but there's an acceptance there that says, yes, this works. Now, on the self-hatred piece, this is something so often in program, it's like the people that I've worked with miss that they really, and I really did believe that if I hated myself enough, it would cause me to change. And what I realized, it's as if my higher power says, so I believe that self-contempt stops spiritual growth. It's as if my higher power says to me, you can hate yourself or you can grow spiritually, or you can grow spiritually, but you can't do both. You pick, I'll wait. Right? So I'm picking spiritual growth. I don't pick self-contempt anymore. I just don't. All right. Now I teach the Enneagram stuff because I think that is, for me at least, it's like that next level that lets me kind of dig in. It is the growth of understanding and effectiveness. It's the tool that I'm using to be able to do that. So I talked last time about that ego structure that we build up. And the metaphor I want you to think of now is we put armor on, right? We have layers of armor that we put on. And that's the kind of the way I look at it. I'm going to talk about the layers of armor. Okay. So the first is we all have instincts, and the deepest coping strategy. So we're a little baby and something happens that it isn't a happy thing, right? And those instincts kind of basically move us away from our true self. I believe we're born with the true self, and our job is to kind of return to that true self. So we have these instincts. Some people have a withdrawing energy, which means they pull away. Some have a connecting. They believe that the answer is to connect, and some have an approaching energy. In case you haven't noticed, I'm an approaching energy. It's the way I show up in the world, and it's the way I'm wired. All right, so everybody has one of these, okay? And then we have a heart center. We have the area where it's feelings that drive us to act a certain way. We all have a heart center. I'm going to sneeze. Or maybe not, I don't know. I need to blow my nose. Okay, anyway, we all have a heart center. I'm so sorry. This is hilarious. Okay, so we all have a heart center. It is the second way that we move away from our true self. And it is how we feel and how we act. Those are related, obviously, right? And it is how we defend ourselves against life. So the instincts basically were built up as children. It is how we defended ourselves as children. We needed that. I believe the ego structure is not evil. It is absolutely necessary as a child, or we wouldn't even be able to survive, playgrounds. So, all right. So this is how we act and how we feel, and it defends us against life. The third way that we move away are the stories we tell ourselves. These are the rationalizations, and it's basically how we defend ourselves against seeing the self-hatred. So we deny the self-hatred and we hate ourselves because of the way we feel and act, right? And then all of us, most of us here anyway, have an added layer of that thing called addiction. So we have all these coping strategies that we put in place. The good news is that we move them one at a time, or maybe all together, I don't know. But we remove the addiction first, then we change the stories we tell ourselves, then we start accepting the way we feel. Okay, feelings and feeling might be real, isn't necessarily true. And then how we act, and then how we feel, and basically those layers of armor kind of come off. What I want to talk about now, real quick, is when people get stuck in other steps. And I have to a degree, but a lot of times what's happened is people that I've worked with get completely stuck in the steps. So I'm going to talk about that, and I've only got about 10 minutes left, so I'll move right along. Okay, so the first thing is, if you were living in steps 10, 11, and 12, you are on the path of happy destiny, right? The big book says we trudge the path of happy destiny. This is what it looks like. You're just kind of trudging along. You have your fellows that you spend time with. You have people that you're working with. There's a sense of freedom, and it's lovely. It is absolutely lovely. If you, however, are stuck in steps 1, 2, and 3, or even step 4, columns 1 and 2, you're like the red line. Like you're beside the path, right? But you're climbing over rocks and, running into trees and doing all that. And eventually you leave because it is way too hard to be beside the path. It just is, right? That's one of the reasons you want to live in 10, 11, and 12 is because it's easier. It's a really, really good way to live your life. The people that get stuck in 1, 2, and 3, and especially step 4, I had a lady in a meeting one time. She took 5 years to do her step 4, and she had 75 pages of resentments. What? Oh my God. These people used to do this in a weekend, and 5 years and 75 pages. How do you get through that? I don't even know. It's not even what the intention, in my opinion, it's not the intention of the 12 steps at all. Okay, so that's stuck in that. Stuck in step 5 looks like this. It's like, oh my God, what if these people look at me like this? What if they're like overwhelmed by that? Because a lot of people have this impression that step 5 means we dump all our shit on the person that we give the step 5 to. And it's simply not true. It's the nature of our defects, the nature of our defenses, not everything that's ever happened in our life. That's not what step 5 is about. Okay, real quick, I want to talk about this picture of self-contempt is how I felt. I talk about the 17th time through the steps. It just means you've been through the steps a lot. I heard something just a few weeks ago that just opened up my eyes so much. And that is, I was working with Patrick, and he said, at Friendly Circle Berlin, usually we don't use defects, we use defenses. And I was like, oh my God, that's the answer. So when I'm working with people, we're entirely ready to have God remove my defenses. I am ready. That ego structure that's in place, I want that gone. And then the shortcomings part is just the areas we've fallen short. So all the moral crap that's tied to this gets set away. These are the defenses. I am entirely ready to God remove those defenses. And I'm asking him to help me in the areas that I've fallen short, where I should have done something and I didn't. I promised I'd do something and I didn't do it. Like that kind of thing, right? So then it's like step 6 is basically God and time, and step 7 is God and work, right? But I'm willing to do whatever it is that I need to do. So if you are stuck in 6, 7, this is it. Notice that this is self-love, and the little squirrely thing, or the swirly thing in the middle, is the logo of Surrender School, which is where I'm from. Okay. So this is the way I do 6 and 7. Okay, so if you have a list from step 4, you're ready for step 8. So a lot of people have thrown away their 4 and then they make this brand new list of 8. No, you have a list already, and not all of them are ode to men. Some aren't ode to men's at all. Okay, so real quick, I want to say, so basically step 8 is made a list of people we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. It doesn't say we want to do it. The word want means having a desire to do something. Nobody has a desire to do. You have a desire for the outcome, but nobody has a desire to sit down and do that, right? So actually, willing means cheerfully consenting or ungrudgingly complying. So if your face is like this little boy, you're not quite there yet. You need to work on it a little bit, because you have to be cheerfully consenting, ungrudgingly complying. You do not, however, have to be like this little guy. You don't have to be like that, right? No, you don't have to be like, I'm so glad I'm going to do this. No, You're kind of like this guy, kind of neutral. Okay, I'm good. I cheerfully consent to do this. That's fine. So if all I am doing is I'm willing to, what makes me do it? What makes you do it is that you get the 9-step promises, right? You get this. If we are painstaking in this through this phase of our development, we will be amazed before we're halfway through. You're going to know a new freedom and a new happiness. You'll not regret the past. You will, right? I mean, you comprehend the word serenity and you will know peace. Wouldn't that be nice to know peace? That's why you do it. Absolutely. And then step 10, right? We get to um, stop fighting everything. We fight nothing. So I've got 3 things here. I'll go quickly through this. 3 things here. If you are stuck on willingness, read 417, Acceptance is the Answer to All My Problems Today in the big book. Alan Berger's entire emotional sobriety book. It's more words than that, but I don't remember what they are. Anyway, his book. And then big book 552 if you're really stuck. Okay. The way this works, awareness, then acceptance, then action. We do it in that sequence. Ribbons are because that is what we think, like, there's cancer awareness, there's Alzheimer's awareness, and so forth. Acceptance gives us peace, and then we have action. Okay, in the area of 8, 9-ish, getting ready to live in 10, 11, and 12, we make a list, we make amends, and then the reason that we make amends is because we want to be able to release blame, because the only way we can live differently is if we release blame. And the only way we can release blame is if we make our amends. Those are tied together. My problem is that everything I've ever released has claw marks on it. I'm going to say real quick, I was going to tell a story about when I was 14, my family had a car accident because a man ran a stop sign. He died during the accident. And I just, this past couple of years, looked it up and found out who he was and kind of looked at his history and that kind of. He was a 24-year-old kid that made a mistake and he died, right? And he was never a boogeyman, but he was never real to me. And it really, really healed me to go back and look at that. That's some serious claw marks. I'm in my 60s and I was 14 when that happened. So, okay. I don't know if anybody has ever heard of the Baader-Meinhof phenomenon. This is the car I drive. It's a Lincoln Aviator. I don't think I'd ever even seen it Lincoln before then, but since then I see them everywhere. And I'm like, did people just start buying Lincolns? No, right? They've had them forever. Anyway, this is called the frequency illusion. And I say, if this is the way our minds work, use this to catch ourselves in the act of whatever. And here's the job. This is what we do. We remember to be a gentle observer of our patterns because the patterns have been there forever, so that we can release them. That's why we do it. This is how you live clean. You watch yourself. Okay, I've got 4 minutes left. I look at my higher power like a diamond, and if the facets that I'm looking at are not helping me, then I just reorient myself, right? So is my higher power big enough, powerful enough, trustworthy enough, loving enough? If not, reorient yourself. If you view your higher power like a diamond, just change it so that you're seeing something that actually works for you. And that's how I seek God. And then the last one is we can't solve our problems with the same thinking that we use to create them. So we need community. And this is where we serve others. All right. So energy flows where the attention goes. For me, I absolutely, as much as I can be, I'm honest about my thoughts and feelings. I spend time reading. I journal a lot. I spend time in nature. I have spiritual talk with friends. I talk about shit that matters because I don't believe in talking about shit that doesn't. And I spend time with my dogs. If I spent my time worrying about other people's opinion of me, especially, and resentments and fears and resisting, and I'm wringing my hands, all of that, energy flows where my attention goes. So I want that shit out of my life. I'm going to focus on the things that really, really allow me to do this. Live clean, seek God, help others. Here's how you do it. Live clean. If you make a mistake, you see it, you apologize, you do better next time. Nothing more than that. That's what you do in 10. That's pretty free. Okay. And for 11, seek God. I do consistent daily spiritual practice of whatever, however, and it changes over time. On page 47 of the big book, it says, God does not make too hard terms for those who seek him. All you have to do is seek. That's it. And that's why the daily spiritual practice for me anyway. And help others. You be a sponsor, work with others in some way. Use your gifts. We all have gifts. Use your gifts. My email, the bottom of my email says, the purpose of life is to discover your gift. The work of life is to develop it. And the meaning of life is to give your gift away. So use your gifts. I'd love to hear from you. Reisdorff2@gmail.com. please be sure to check out surrenderschool.org. And with that, I think we're at like 29 minutes. So I think we're good. I'm done.